If you are building a home, you already know that every decision feels like a battle between your budget and your ambition. You become trapped into looking for ways that you can cut down on costs. And in so doing, many homeowners have ended up cutting corners, sacrificing on quality, and paying the price later on. But it doesn't have to be that way. My name is Sam Wanyoike. I am a building expert with over a decade of construction experience. And in this video, I want to explore various ways that you can be able to cut down on costs in the right way without compromising on the structural integrity or the comfort or long-term value. These are proven strategies that can be able to help you in your construction journey. Now, before I talk about various ways that you can be able to cut down on costs in the right way, I want us to explore first the various mistakes that homeowners have made in an attempt to cut down on costs. And these decisions may look cheap in the short term, but in the long run, they end up paying the price. First and foremost, I want to talk about rushed or cheap foundation. We all know that foundation is the very backbone of your entire structure. But this is where some people are cutting corners. For example, when the foundation is being hurried, they deploy cheap fundis to do their foundation and setting out is poorly done, or they do shallow foundation to create enough support to the structure. Talk about weak under-designed structures in the foundation. Other mistakes could be lack of proper curing of the foundation structure, or even not doing proper backfill or compaction before casting your slab. I want to give an example of another lady who had procured a fundi. She was doing her construction during a rainy season, and she had already dug trenches, and the trenches had been filled with water. The trenches that she had dug had accumulated some water, but instead of draining off all the water, she opted to concrete into the trenches with water in them. What happens is that the water begins to wash off the cement in the freshly poured concrete, and that weakens the structure. That is a disaster. The second thing that we talk about, a mistake that many people have found themselves committing, is lack of substandard materials or use of substandard materials or weak mixes of concrete or mortar. Where everyone is aware that the construction cost is not little, many people during the construction period will be looking for cheap materials of construction, say stones, or even the quality of sand. Talk about the quality of poor quality of ballast. Others, they could have the best of the materials, but they are not keen on the quality of the mixes, putting too much sand and reducing on the amount of cement in an attempt to save the number of bags that are going to be used. In other instances, I've also seen people use dirty water just because they want to save on the cost of purchasing clean water to do their mixes. All that just in an attempt to save money. But the problem is that it results into weak concrete, poor bonding, and even cracks begin to form even before the building is complete. The danger is that many of these people seem to have little regard on the structural integrity of their building. And that is a big problem in the construction industry. I'll talk about the third thing, and this is poor plumbing and electrical works. Despite the complexities of their building, a good number of people seem also not to be keen on procuring for electrical drawings or plumbing layouts. Some of them also deploy cheap plumbers and electricians who do not have thorough understanding of the work. One thing I'll tell you is that some fundis have just learned the job on site. Some have not been able to acquire enough experience and begin to call themselves fundis. Another mistake on this subject is some homeowners would opt for cheap pipes, telling the fundi that I just want to just get me the cheapest of them all. But this is the danger. When leaks are forming, an electrical shock or electrical shocks, then what will ensue is that you will be breaking tiles, breaking the walls, and even breaking your budget just to fix it. Remember, prevention is better than cure. And with that, I will talk about the fourth, which is bad workmanship from unskilled cheap labor. Definitely, some people, even if they buy some good materials, they want to save on the labor costs. As a rule of the thumb, we give 70% of the cost to materials and 30% to the labor, right? But Many people would want to also cut costs on the labor, which is not bad. But opting for cheap fundis who do not have enough experience have ended up costing many projects. I have seen buildings where walls are misaligned, beams that are out of line, columns that are out of plan, and that compromises their capacity and structural integrity. You'll also see levels that have not properly done. I'll give an example with one lady who had missed out on a good fundi but opted for a cheaper one just because of the cost. A miscalculated decision was made by the fundi to this client who would consider herself a layperson. And the advice was to introduce a basement in an area that did not require of one. And this thought that was received by the client ended up costing even much more to this client. Some things that she had not anticipated. Cheap is expensive, so they say, and you cannot cut corners without paying someday. On the fifth mistake that I've seen is disengaging professionals. I have seen many homeowners who are building their own homes disengaging, trying to avoid paying architects, engineers, quantity surveyors, project managers, just in an attempt to save on the cost. This is the sad bit that without engaging the professionals, small mistakes keep on multiplying. There is a lot of wastage that happens on site. Besides, the final results end up not meeting the very standards. So the thought of trying to save by not having professionals with you ends up backfiring. And this I've seen many times. And it ends up costing you even more in the long run. I want to switch gears from discussing the costly mistakes or costly areas of cutting corners and to focus now on how you can cut on cost in the right way without compromising on the beauty or the integrity of the house. So first and foremost, I will talk about simplifying the design and the floor plan. What do I mean? Make your design simple by opting for regular shapes, say for example, such as rectangles, squares of rooms that do not have many corners. This reduces on the cost of materials, the cost of labor, and even the time that you take to build. Opt also for a compact design. A compact design does not mean that you compromise on the beauty of or functionality, but rather it means efficient utilization of the space. That saves a lot on the materials. And in the overall, you'll be able to save cost of your house in a very big way. It is one of the best and the easiest ways that you can be able to reduce on the cost of your house. The second area is to choose cost-effective but not cheap finishes or cost-effective alternative building technologies. Instead of going for imported tiles, hardwood, you could opt for locally made tiles of good quality but at a fraction of the price. Consider the alternative technologies, but this I would advise that you do it under the right guidance of a specialist or a building expert. This can save the cost of your construction. Instead of going for poor quality, go for good quality that are cost friendly and you'll be able to save the cost of your construction in the long run. The third thing is to limit on the custom features of your own home. Definitely we would want to have a building or our home to look very nice. But I would advise that on this aspect, delayed gratification can really help you to save big on your construction. Limit the custom arches of your house and other features such as the molds of the beams on the beams or on the columns, those designs or ceilings that are not leveled. That has a cost implication. Again, you can postpone this to a later date so that you're able to focus on functionality and you're able to focus on getting the house completed within the right budget. You can upgrade your house later when you have been able to finish the house and you are settled and even you have been able to recover from the budget. And then I'll talk about sourcing the materials yourself or with oversight. What I mean is you or someone assisting you, a professional, to procure your construction materials will enable you to reduce on the cost due to the markups that are put by contractors. You can be able also to negotiate on the prices, and especially if you can be able to buy in bulk. That saves a lot on the cost of your construction. And then the fifth thing is building in stages, but strategically. If you are operating on a tight budget, instead of compromising on some aspect of your building cost, you can consider to build your house in phases. But what I mean when I talk about strategically is you can be able to identify areas of stopover between one phase to the next so that you do not end up redoing the work after some time. For instance, you can build your foundation up to ground floor and then you are able to make a stop to be able to allow you time to gather yourself financially. And then you can also build the next level up to the next floor level. Or if you have a significant amount of money, you can consider to do the structure first and then begin to do finishes in bits. I've seen some people finish their house and complete some rooms and then they go in. Then the rest can be completed slowly by slowly. And this is very much welcome instead of trying to cut down on costs that end up compromising on either the beauty, the functionality, the structural integrity, or the long-term value of your building. Finish the essential and then the non-essentials, such as landscaping, can be done later and also in stages, and that will be able to save you much on your construction and ease the burden of your construction. Having said all that, I'll finish by saying that cutting on the cost of construction does not mean compromising on your dream. Rather, it means to be intentional, plan properly in advance, and to focus your budget on where it matters. It means being proactive rather than reactive. And with the right guidance, you'll be able to build smartly, strategically, and safely. So if you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share to someone in your space who is planning to build their next home project. And if you have any question or you need any personalized guidance, kindly reach out to the contacts that have been shared, the email address down there, and we'll be glad to assist you. Remember, build smart, spend wisely, and never compromise on quality. I am Sam Wanyoike. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Thank you.